I think one of the reasons I don't believe in NFTs is because I trained myself from the very beginning, my literal childhood, on a game called Webkinz, to not buy into the whole, I think this is valuable, therefore I think you should think this is valuable, therefore it has value. If I think it has value, I convince you to think it has value, then it has value. You know what I mean? For example, Webkinz. I'm sure you had some. I would spend hours in the trading room. There's this cool little like square area where you could put your pet and then you could trade items. I swear this is the beginning of where I learned to do business. It went from Webkinz to eBay to then college. Like that was my transition across the business life. But in Webkinz, you would literally trade items that everyone collectively associated a almost market in value for. The shutter shades would be up one day. They would be worth plumpy glasses. But then, oh, the next month, you know, a lot of people have shutter shades. Therefore, the value has decreased because more people have it. Less people want it. I mean, it was crazy. Like we traded clothing items on this video game and created a market. And I just remember as a kid, I didn't have all the best items, but I wanted to have the best items. And instead of stealing the best items, I came up with a method to convince somebody else that my terrible garbage items were as valuable as what everyone was gunning for in the trading room, which at the time were like just a bunch of clothing items. I don't know why. So this was my plan. I found a stranger and I convinced him to play along. For the sake of the example, I'm going to assign various items to fit the story. So me and my stranger buddy would make up a fake trade scenario where, say, he had a fancy couch and he was willing to trade that couch for some nacho chips. And I had the nacho chips, but his couch didn't interest me. And so we would publicly have this conversation in the open chat room, letting everyone know that for some reason, this man wanted to trade a couch for some nacho chips. Naturally, that's going to raise some red flags as people are like, well, what? That's a great trade. This man is literally giving you a couch for something, some worthless food item. Make the trade. But since we were in on it together, I would play like, oh, you know, it doesn't really interest me. Like, you know, I trade it for something else. We would then get people to trade their good stuff for my nacho chips because they thought if they got the nacho chips and traded it to that guy, then they would get a couch. So the moment that I traded my nacho chips for whatever they were willing to give for it, we would literally peace out and log off. We would take the items and leave, leaving the person that simply overheard our conversation with a bag of chips that was worthless. But they were so deceived into thinking they were about to just make this trade with this other guy for a couch. They were going to be living life, but really we were in on it together and we just pieced out after we got the items. The super cynical part about this is that at the time when I convinced the stranger to help me, I was like, I'm going to split the profits 50-50 with you. The moment I got the items, I literally unfriended him and pieced out. I was kind of crazy. As a kid, I made a lot of really interesting decisions that routinely got me in trouble. I remember one time I was watching school, you know, because I'm homeschooled, and I got bored and I decided to take my pencil and start working holes in our bug screen, you know, just slowly, just ever so slightly. I was, you know, make it a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger until I could, you know, fully put the pencil through the bug screen. Instead of just telling my mom, hey, I just like put a pencil through my bug screen, I decided to make 4 more holes, sprinkle airsoft BBs at the bottom of the window pane, run and get my mom and say, hey mom, some boys just drove up on their bikes and shot at my window with airsoft guns. So I went from accidentally making a hole in a bug screen to then making it worse by 4 and then making up a story that I was shot at by the neighbor's kids with airsoft guns. And need I remind you, the airsoft guns that I had you at that age, I don't know how old I was young, were not high powered. I mean, they're like, you're talking $20 at Academy, 175 FPS max. So you know that thing is just like getting tossed in the wind left and right? And I've now made up this story that this airsoft BB had enough velocity to go through this wired screen and leave perfect circular holes. Like that's some velocity. Honestly, at that point, it should have gone through the window. Naturally, because I was a saint and a wholesome boy, and she had trained me very well, my mother, she believed every word of it. Didn't doubt it for a second. So her mom instincts kick in immediately. She's like, I need to call the cops. I need to have a patrol, find these kids in the neighborhood, and make sure their moms know that they just shot at my kid. Naturally, young Roy's thinking, well, maybe we don't have to go that far. You know, maybe they thought I was someone else. you know? Maybe the wind just took one of the BBs and just sailed it through the window, you know, 3 or 4 times. I really don't know why I thought that was a good idea. Because a cop literally pulled up to the house, did a search of the window, did a search of the street, patrolled down the sidewalk, was looking for other airsoft BBs, then patrolled the entire neighborhood. I wasted an officer's time. Imagine there had been crime nearby and he was busy tending to a fake call of a fake story where I blamed neighbors' kids. Heaven forbid that there be neighbors' kids out and they get arrested, you know, and they don't even know what the heck happened. Imagine little Johnny's just out for a nice little bike ride and he just gets bodied by the 5-0. You know, that would have been on me. But I mean, that's where my mind went. Like when I was young, like I thought of craziest things, deceptive, dastardly. I don't know how I turned out the way I did. I was so good at college. But my childhood, I feel like I was setting myself up for disaster and being a problem kid. And my parents did such a great job. I mean, they like literally, this wasn't because of my parents at all. This was my own brain convincing me that these ideas were right. Was I a problem child? No. Could I have been? Yeah, absolutely. I remember one time my buddy and I, Preston, were fishing in a creek. The cool activity back then was literally to be like outdoorsy. I know most of the kids now wouldn't know what the heck that means. We were the type of guys that would build forts in the corners of our backyard and brag about it. We would tell each other about the fancy perks and design work and features our fort had that would literally make the other dude jealous to want to incorporate something similar or try and best the other. Like at some point, Preston made a second floor to his fort that got on top of his shed, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. Or for me, I literally put a lawn chair in the corner of my court thinking I'm gonna spend hours out here hanging out in my little club. I don't know what I thought. I don't know why I thought that was a great idea, especially in the blistering 100-degree heat of Texas. But like that was fun for us. And so another thing we did was we would go fishing in the creek. None of the gear was mine, it was all my dad's. And so we would grab fishing poles, and I didn't know how to properly bait a hook with actual bait, nor did I want to use my dad's expensive lures or worms or anything like that. And so we got cheese. Now, if you don't know, cheese doesn't exactly sink on the hook. And so when we were fishing, the cheese, our bait, was just sitting at the top of the water. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever seen bubble red nosed ducks, geese. I don't know what the heck it was. I think it was a duck, but they're angry. They are angry looking ducks. They're mean. And this gaggle flock family of ducks comes waddling on in up to our bait where our top water cheese lure is just doing nothing but soaking in the sun. The cheese was getting a better tan than I ever had, sitting at the top of the water. No fish, no guppies. And these ducks come swimming up, and instead of like, you know, reeling in mine like a good kid like Preston sees the duck coming and he's like, oh, I'm gonna reel that in. I'm like, I wonder what would happen if a duck, and then boom, duck grabs, hook goes through the bill of this duck, and now I am literally on the line with a massive red-nosed angry duck reeling this bad boy in. I don't know how to like stop this because this thing is just flying, flapping, going crazy. And I'm just like, I'm frozen. Of course, this creek bed just backs up to a ton of houses. And there's a duck lady. Of course, there's a freaking duck lady that feeds these precious ducks like they are her own children every morning. And she sees and hears the commotion and runs out and is like, what are you doing to Arnold? You know, like she has names for the ducks. And she runs out and she's like, stop it, you're hurting him. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? He's already hooked. Like, I don't know, you know, I'm 13. Around that time, the story gets even crazier. This guy on a ninja bike wearing an entire like black belt garb thing. I don't know what it's called. I don't want to disrespect them, but the bath towel with the black belt, okay? Bath towel, black belt. This dude drives up on the road, sees the commotion, gets off. Ninja Man runs down and is like, what are you kids doing? And we're like, I got a duck. And he goes down and he wrestles this duck. You know, he just grabs that thing and he's trying to calm it down. But this thing's a biter, you know, it's just like snapping at him. It's just like, he tells Duck Lady, he's like, hey, go get me some pliers. Hey, go get me some pliers. And so she runs off, she gets the stuff, brings in the pliers, and, he, works it out of the duck's bill, gets it out, lets it go free, and then we get the lecture. I got a lecture from a ninja bike black belt and a crazy duck lady over animal cruelty and the irresponsibility of our activities. Then they requested to know who my parents were, of which I gave fake names, wasn't giving that out, followed up shortly by a fake address. So at least I was smart enough to do that. But wow, my mind was was just like crazy when I was younger. You know, I would get in trouble and then I'd get out of it. But then, you know, and it was just, wow. To this day, I'm still very impressed with my performance, but also a little bit ashamed. You know, I do feel bad about it. I've changed my ways, okay? But nevertheless, my childhood was kind of crazy.